Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the new advice segment, this and that. So, I feel like it's pretty common for people to be told to just work hard and you'll get to where you want to go, or like hard work beats talent. Talent and hard work beats hard work and no talent, you know? So, it's not good enough that you are working hard and that the things that you do are difficult and that they're quote unquote the right way. They also need to be good. You need to be making meaningful improvements. You need to optimize. And it, of course, is a balance of how you actually optimize the things that you do so you don't spend too much time actually optimizing and then don't spend any time working. This is very common actually. Machine learning, which is one of the disciplines that I study. Sorry, not sorry. You have to one worry about your config file and worry about if you based off the most recent research if there is something that can train the thing for better and for cheaper. But you also need to actually just sit down and start training because it takes time and it's not going to be perfect. There's a difficulty in the computer science world right now that people who try to use AI tools, it takes time for people to develop their product. And by the time the AI tool actually comes out, well, it might be outdated. There might be a better AI tool that already came on the horizon. That's just the difficulty of things growing really fast and things getting better and better. So there's a struggle where consistency is what's best for people's bodies, but by the time you pick something that is the best for you, and maybe in terms of your training regime, then some new trendy thing comes out which is even better. So do you either hop ship and bandwagon, quote unquote, in order to make your life in order to follow what is the newest technology or the newest development in research aligns with, or do you keep on doing what you're doing because you've already made so much progress with the current thing, and if you jump ship, you might get rid of that. And there's not really a good answer to that, right? You have to sit down and choose and pick and choose, and this is true with training all the time. It's like, soccer players at some point in their lives, they either took a bunch of time on the pitch or they, went on their own and they just played. There's a CS player too that was known for just playing games and that's how they improved. Other people, they need to aim train. They need to do situations. They need to make custom workshops to help them train. And it's different for everyone, right? People grow under different circumstances. People's bodies, some people are just adapt really quickly and adapt well. Like they're a mold. They're easy to mold. And put into a lot of different situations and they adapt and think quickly. Other people, they grow steady and slowly and they develop over time. So I'm not here to diagnose what type of training is best for you as an individual. What I am here to talk about is how there is a balance between how hard you work and also working hard in the right directions, if that makes any sense. And also where I want to get rid of this idea that if you just work hard, if your life is just difficult, that things will get better. Like, yes, if you work, your life will improve, most likely. It is a very reasonable claim, very easy claim to make. If you work hard, right, if you keep on making meaningful improvements, it also means that things will get better. But there's a plateau. The research always shows that there's a plateau for machine learning. Again, another niche reference that I'm going to make, but it's fresh on the mind. There's this paper called Deep Double Descent by ChatGPT, and you would think that if you just keep on increasing the amount of neurons that something has, that it would be able to think better, right? Neurons, those little things in your brain that light up in sequences and make you actually have thoughts and feelings and reactions to things. But that's not true. They find out that if you give it too much information or if you give it too much ability to think, then it gets paralyzed and it has difficulty thinking. And this is something in real life that we call critical thinking, right? There's thinking, there's the quote unquote perfect amount of thinking, and then there's overthinking and underthinking. So broad thinking and then the other layers under it, but there's just so much more to improvement than just work hard. There is working, and you will work in a certain direction and you will make meaningful improvements because you dedicate yourself, right? You're consistent, you train, all that good stuff. But you know, if I'm doing standing curls with a dumbbell and some other person might be doing the wall support, and then they will be able to isolate the bicep a lot better because they don't need to stabilize through their core. It might be more optimal for some individuals to train their core and their biceps at the same time, but some people are limited by that, right? People also use lift straps, and those limit your forearms, right? You aren't training your forearms every single day, but it might be better for your forearms and your performance as an athlete if you don't train your forearms every single day. If you aren't so reliant on your forearms for every workout, so you use lift straps not only to mitigate that weakness and allow your forearms to recover, but also to be able to push even harder in the gym because the lift straps help you not have your forearm be that weakness, the actual muscle that you're trying to work be the weakness. These are examples of ways that you can work hard and also work smart and get more out of your hard work. And that is such an important thing. So yes, you can spend all your time researching every single day and then you don't get anywhere, right? And because you didn't actually go to the gym and work out, you could also try to be doing all the right things and relationship advice. Whoa. But it might just be the wrong person. The person might not be receptive to the quote unquote right thing. So it feels great to be right, but it might feel better to be in a relationship. And there's a balance there where you can't just do one or the other. All right. Like, some people don't always like to be corrected. Sometimes you need to focus on actually living and being in your relationship and being present in the moment instead of just, okay, it's this, there's all these problems, I find solutions to them. So getting a little bit off track. So I don't feel like I'm qualified to give relationship advice, but I do feel very qualified to actually talk about hard work and work ethic. I am surrounded by people in college who work very hard. Lots of people dedicate a lot of long hours. There's this guy I know who's interning at Tesla, and he's at the lab from like 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. So I'm sure that he's working very hard. It's a big time commitment, but is he sacrificing sleep? Does he eat well? Is he actually retaining any of the knowledge that he's gaining? Like, you don't know. People, it might be counterintuitive to say that in order to study better, you need to spend less time studying, but you need to sleep to actually retain the knowledge that you have. You need to eat food and make sure that your cognition is well. That means also doing things that don't alter your cognition. And there's so many things, and I could talk about that in a different advice episode. But if weird analogy, but if you have no brain and you're trying to learn, it's difficult. If you don't sleep and then you work really hard and your life is really difficult, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing what is best for you. That is most optimal. A lot of people confuse difficulty and progress. It's like, oh, I studied 16 hours for this exam, and then like both people might get an A. Like one person might just be smarter than the other person, But or maybe that person just slept at night and they studied like 2 hours, every week instead of like 16 hours right at the last minute. And the 2 hours were not very difficult, but it doesn't make it any less meaningful than the 16 hours that somebody else spent last minute. If anything, those 2 hour blocks were probably more productive than the person who slowly burnt out over those 16 hours. And yes, pushing yourself really hard will make it so you can grow. You might get a really good study session in those 16 hours because you pushed yourself so hard and because you consistently push yourself really hard and your body is used to it and it's adapted to those circumstances. But you might still perform worse than the person, sleeps at night and, does the things in the 2 hour blocks where it's easier for them to focus. Sure, people would be able, if you go into the lab and you have a 16-hour shift versus the person who does the 2 hour blocks, that person who does the 2 hour blocks might not fare as well against you. So, take the analogies that I give with a grain of salt, train for your use case. But the people who find that balance for themselves are still working hard. They have to manage their schedule, and it's difficult to be like, okay, I'm going to study this 2 hours here and this 2 hours here and then review here and formatting it in that way. But it also is difficult to do that 16-hour study block and still sleep well at night and balance eating food and all those other things that your body needs to feel comfortable to grow. So I'll talk about stress in a different video, but just because you're working hard doesn't mean you are doing what is best. And hard work doesn't necessarily mean good progress. So yes, you do have to work hard, but you also have to work smart. And this is probably a broad over explanation of what that actually means. Anyways, video's over. I probably should have included that first round. And I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.